What's up, friends? Welcome to The Beautiful Mess, where we talk about tools and tactics to improve your life. I'm your host, Paul Dittus, a content creator, YouTuber, and now podcaster who's sharing with you tools and tactics and things that you can apply in your life to navigate the messiness where there's, order and chaos and everywhere in between. And this episode, I'm very excited to dive into this topic of growth mindset and the difference between a growth mindset and a fixed mindset. It's a very important difference and somewhat subtle. I was actually thinking, if I didn't read this book, I would have thought that, a growth mindset and a fixed mindset, that the differences, I might not have been aware of the nuances, especially when talking and applying these principles. And so I'm super excited about having a growth mindset. I think that it's very much in spirit of this podcast. And part of, in the previous episode, I explained how I'm trying to read 40 books this year. And the way that I got in a hold of this great idea of growth mindset versus fixed mindset is this book. So this is a book by Carol S. Dweck. She's a psychology professor at Stanford University. And so I think this is going to be my book number 24. As soon as I finish it, I'm about 86% of the way there. Have an audiobook, so I know the exact percentage. Really enjoying the read so far. Highly recommend it. She basically dives into the different applications of a fixed and growth mindset in different areas of life, whether you're a business leader, or maybe you're a parent or a teacher, a coach. They talk about it in the sense of sports and how having a growth mindset is very important in that regard. And it's what I love about it. This was something that I learned through college. One of my professors said, to help people understand an idea, oftentimes you want to go to the extreme. So the one example that I have is in choral conducting. If you want to teach somebody how to sing something loudly, then you have them over exaggerate that you make them sing as loud as they can, and then you bring it back a little bit, because it's always easier to bring it back a little bit than to get them to go all the way. So, if you tell them to go all the way in and then dial it back, that's usually a good method, instead of just a little bit more, just a little bit more. Let them experience a full force and then bring it back. And the same thing, if you want to make them sing quietly, you would have them sing very, very softly, very, very softly. And then, you could make them sing a little bit more. And, it's fine tuning things. But sometimes you just need that, it's like you got a raw block of marble and you just got to take a nice big chunk out to start things off. And so sometimes you just have to do that refining. So Carol Dweck kind of shows examples on the extremes. And she explains that sometimes this is not your normal, examples necessarily of growth mindset playing out, but she often uses, famous people or, people that you might not know of, but are great examples of growth and a fixed mindset. It's very fascinating. And I think that you can learn so much from this no matter where you are in life. I think it can be applicable to whatever field you're in. It's just a fascinating read. Highly recommend. So to begin things off, I thought it would be helpful if we dive into a little bit of a definition of what a growth mindset is, and who better to get it from than Carol Dweck herself. And she says, in a growth mindset, people believe that their basic abilities can be developed through dedication and hard work. Brains and talent are just the starting point. This view creates a love of learning and a resilience that is essential for great accomplishment. So that's your growth mindset. And then on the other hand, we have our fixed mindset, and she defines it this way. In a fixed mindset, people believe their basic qualities, like their intelligence or talent, are simply fixed traits. They spend their time documenting their intelligence or talent instead of developing them. They also believe that talent alone creates success without effort. And I thought that last part was really interesting, especially when you learn more about the without effort part. When people offer praise to kids, he talks about this, and they say you're so smart, you're an A student. That actually can be harmful to the student, because what you're telling the kid is that you expect them to achieve these results without working. That it's a bad thing if you have to put in effort to achieve those results. So instead, you should encourage their effort. It's a different kind of praising. So you want to praise the process, not the intelligence or talent. So what that looks like is you could praise their effort, strategy, focus, perseverance, improvement, but not like you're the best student, and they went through a couple examples of parents that would praise their kids in the wrong way, and the kids would internalize it. And it was so sad to hear how basically they felt like they were inadequate and they felt that their parents, would look at them in a negative light if they didn't achieve these things. Whereas with the growth mindset, it was a much more positive environment for the kids, and they saw, their parents as more of an encouraging force, and they saw problems as challenges, but were excited about them. And I thought that was super fascinating, is this sense of being excited for harder things. That was another trait of the growth mindset, is somebody that's excited to try new things because they know that they're going to make mistakes. They know that. And in fact, the one thing that she talks about is that if you don't make mistakes, like a student, they did a test or something and they just went through it really quickly. Instead of praising that student, they said oh, I'm so sorry. I this is way too easy for you. Let's get you something that's a little bit more challenging. I thought that was so fascinating. Instead of saying oh, you're so great, you're so smart. It's no, we're all trying to learn and develop. Let's, be excited about the journey instead of just looking at a stopping point. And I thought that was so interesting, is looking at intelligence and intelligence and talent and brains as the starting point. You're not fixed into one way of doing things. And that what they found is, again, going to education viewpoint, is that when people realized that they were those with a fixed mindset, if they were getting bad grades, or they were told, you're not doing well, they would end up studying less because they were just so discouraged, and they just felt, what's the point of studying more? Whereas the person with a growth mindset would be I understand that I'm not ready for this test coming up, so I'm going to put in the effort. I know that effort and study will pay off. So I'm going to put in that effort to get closer to where I need to be to take this test. And I just thought that was fascinating. So it's amazing. And it's proven, she's done studies on this. And one of the most fascinating things where they tested fixed mindset and growth mindset students is that when they were presented with a challenge that was above where they could accomplish, was that those with the growth mindset had more activity in the brain. They were thinking and trying to understand what they could do to get past this problem, how they could accomplish, and reach the goal. Whereas the fixed mindset students, there was hardly any, if any, brain activity. So basically they were just trying to run away from the problem. And I think you can think about different areas of your life where you have maybe a fixed mindset or a growth mindset. And she explains that there could be certain areas that you definitely have a great growth mindset and other areas where you have a fixed mindset. So keep that in mind. So basically, they did all these studies. And so, another interesting thing was like the grading. There was one school that decided, instead of having a failing grade, having a not yet. So it wasn't just like this ultimatum, I failed a course, that's it. It was like, I haven't completed this course yet. So I think that's definitely the mindset to have. It's like, maybe I might not be the best at this, but I'm going to have the right mindset. I'm going to, try my best because I know that effort will be paid off. And so I definitely encourage you to do that. They did this test to see if the kids had a growth mindset or a fixed mindset by giving them, I think it was like puzzles. And they asked them after they did the first puzzle, do you want a harder puzzle? Like one at the same level or easier? And what they found is that those with a growth mindset wanted the harder test. They are like, I'm up for a challenge. I want the challenge. Give me the challenge, because I know I'm going to learn from that challenge. And so I think that's so encouraging. It's like, we need to be like those growth-minded students when we're faced with a challenge and, we're asked, do you want the easier route or the harder route? Maybe we should opt for the harder route and just say, hey, this might be messy. There might be mistakes, but that's okay. That's okay. I think that's a good life, way to live life. Let's see. So yeah, using the words yet and not yet, she says, gives greater confidence. And so it just shows that you can exercise. It's a skill. It's not something that you're like, if you have a fixed mindset, it's not fixed necessarily. You can change that. You can become more growth minded. So I encourage you, if you feel like you're currently in a set fixed mindset, to think about, shifting in some ways to a growth mindset. So another trait of those with a fixed mindset is they often like to blame the circumstances. And she gives an example of this, famous tennis player who would always blame the circumstances. It's like, why didn't I win? It was because of, the rain. It was because of the opponent. It was because of, they always found something to blame. It wasn't their fault. So I think they didn't end up exerting themselves. They didn't end up, putting in the extra hours of practice to understand maybe why they didn't win and learn from that. Instead, they just said like, I don't know. It's because of these other things that it's happening. I can't do anything to change that. And so with a fixed mindset, you're just kind of running away from the problem. You're not addressing it head on, and you're not growing from it. Whereas again, the growth mindset, you're ready for the challenge, you're excited for the challenge, and you're just like waiting to go in and dive in on that. And like personally speaking, I can think back to my teachers and various people, my music coaches and things like that really were influential. I've had probably on both spectrums, maybe those with more of a fixed mindset and more and those on the growth mindset. And it was a big difference. I mean, I think teachers are a great example. I'm sure you can think of a couple that are on either spectrum. But those that were growth mindseted, I just felt like they had my best interest. Like I could feel comfortable making mistakes because they knew that I was putting in effort, and they wanted to encourage that and help me to progress. So it was about putting in the effort, not you're super talented. You're the best at this. Like, whereas like they found people would end up stopping. Like there were prodigies. They gave an example of a prodigy that like ended up not becoming their full potential because they kind of got into this fixed mindset that, things came easy. And because of that, they didn't end up like progressing as a normal violin student would be. There was a violinist. And so there were other violinists. I think they went to one of the famous, it might have been Juilliard. They went to a famous music school, and they found that the ones with like that had growth mindset or just other violinists were better than this prodigy because they basically, thought, hey, I've got the talent. There shouldn't be a need for effort. Like, effort's bad. That's the fixed mindset. It's like, it looks at effort and it actually sees it as like a negative thing. It's like, if I have to put in effort for this, it's a bad thing. That's something to keep in mind. If like you end up kind of maybe wanting to stop something, like kind of reevaluate. Is it because I'm bad at it? Then maybe understand, like, before you just throw in the towel, it's like, is it, do I really have a desire to learn this? Have I given it my best shot? Like, have I put in the work to say, this isn't for me? Or am I just merely just saying like, hey, I hit a roadblock. That's it. I'm done. I think, a lot of people give up before they should. And the same thing, if you want to work out, you have to be okay with starting somewhere. I went through that myself when I started working out in a gym. I'm a complete newbie, and sometimes it's intimidating. And the fixed mindset in me wants us to say, hey, like, I'm just not, The Rock. I'm not Dwayne Johnson, but instead it's like, no, I know this is good for me. And if I put in the effort and apply myself, I can get in a better, like, I can become more fit than I am right now. And that's a good thing. I want to accomplish that. That's one of my goals. So that's very important. And the other thing that they would talk about is with the growth mindset is the relationship with other people, where the growth mindset is very much a we, like it's a team effort. It's not like it's all about me and my talents and my gifts. Like, it's everyone is like, it's okay if someone else is good at something, it's not a bad thing. Instead, it's like, how can we, work together to accomplish things? Whereas the fixed mindset often likes to isolate themselves and kind of work on an island, which can hurt their development and growth. I've probably used the word growth way too much in this podcast. And so some examples of famous people that they mention with a growth mindset, Muhammad Ali. So, I mean, I think the example was like, he wasn't necessarily like the build of your typical boxer. And so like people would make fun of him or just like say like, oh, you can't do this. Like, but he totally proved them wrong. He studied it. Like, he realized that in order for him to be great, he had to put in the work, and he was up for the challenge. He put in the work. And I mean, now he's one of the best boxers. And I think that's the amazing thing. Like, he didn't focus on what he couldn't do. He focused on those things that could make a difference. He studied his opponent, whereas the other person might not have been studying, all the different moves. Like, Muhammad Ali really like understood inside and out what his opponents would do. And also, he was light on his feet. Was it sting like a bee or whatever his thing was? But yeah, his great example of a growth mindset. So yeah, Muhammad Ali, Tiger Woods, just to name a few. And in business, this definitely applies, where fixed mindset bosses, CEOs, and like people in charge can often show short-term results. Like they were talking about these companies that would have these wonderful, short-term results, but in the long run, they didn't want to innovate because they thought, there was one car company, it might have been Chrysler. Don't quote me on it, but I want to say the example was Chrysler, where the CEO, I think it was, didn't want to change. And I think part of the concern was that if they did change, then someone else would get credit for the success. And so it was very like kind of me. Let's keep the spotlight on me right now. But that really hampered the growth of the business. And so that's important to keep in mind. It's like, if you have a fixed mindset that like things are the way that they are, and that, it's reliant upon my talents, my gifts, then there's no sense of like journey. There's no sense of like, I need to go somewhere. It's like everything's based on now. And I thought it was really fascinating, her insight on standardized testing. The fixed mindset students saw their test results as a reflection of themselves. Like, this is my intelligence. So like if the test showed that they were, doing poorly, that's how I am. I'm not intelligent. Whereas, or if they did really well, it's like, I'm smart. Like, it's because of me. I don't really have to put in the effort. It's like, I'm smart. Whereas a growth-minded students, if they did poorly, it's just a point on the line. It's not the end. It's a starting point. It's like, hey, I took this test. I'm here and I need to get there. What do I need to do today to get to achieving a good grade on this test? So that's what it's all about. It's like, don't isolate yourself. Apply these principles so that you are living in a growth mindset. Believe that your basic abilities can be developed. You're not, set in like a simple framework that you have to live life this one way. I think of people in jobs. Oftentimes they feel stuck. They feel like, what can I do to make things better? Like, I'm just set in this job, in this, lifeless job. If that's you, have a growth mindset. Like, make an action plan so that you can put in the effort. Focus on the effort, not on necessarily the results. Use the results maybe as a, to see where things are at, but not as a measurement of who you are and what you're capable of. You don't have to look at life as like you fixed. There's hope. And, I think this highly, again, as we close out this podcast, I want to recommend checking out the book Mindset by Carol S. Dweck. Again, she's a psychology professor at Stanford University. And she also has a TED Talk if you want to check that out as well. That was pretty cool to listen to. I want to say it's about 10 minutes long, not too long. Check it out. And if you wouldn't mind, I would love for you to go on Apple Podcasts and leave us a rating. Or you can go on Spotify. That's another place where you can leave us a rating. And then if you want to subscribe to us on YouTube, follow us, all that good stuff. We put out short content on the social media, so I'd love to hear from you. And if you want to send me a message, please do. I'm at Paul Dittus at basically any of the social media that you can think of. Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, you name it. At Paul Dittus. Shoot me a message. Love to talk with you, share ideas. Are you in a growth mindset? Are you in a fixed mindset in certain areas? Or what is your game plan to get to a growth mindset? Well, thanks, friends, for tuning into The Beautiful Mess. I'm so glad to have you on this podcast. It's been such a joy. It's hard to believe it's episode 24. Going on 25 next episode. Can't wait for it. I'll see you there. Till next time, my friends, stay messy.